Hello, everybody. So excited to see everybody. Um, we are going to get started in just a few minutes, but if you would like to go ahead and join me, I am going to be at Curie Live with the pin 882933. And I'll start this in just a few minutes when we get right on time. But my question is going to be, how do you use AI, particularly ChatGPT? So if you want to go ahead and make your way over there, that'd be great. I'm so excited everybody's here. I'm Mary Elizabeth Nelson. I'm going to get started right on the nose at 11:30. If you want to go ahead and join at Curie Live, there's a pin or QR code on the screen. And I'll start the question in just a few minutes. But if you want to go ahead and get there, it's a fun little site that will give you a cute name. Nickname. They give you their own nickname. right, about 4 more minutes and we're going to get started. I'm going to use CuriPod today to connect with you. And if you want to go ahead and head on to Curie.live, you can join with the pin 882933. Welcome everybody. I'm going to get started right at 11:30, so I think we have about 3 more minutes. I'm going to use CuriPod today to connect with you. Feel free to head on over there, Curie.live, and the join code is 882933. All right. So I have about 11:30. Someone asked is there a way to cut off the music? Yes. As soon as I start that activity, the music will go away. So that is an interesting thing about CuriPod. I like it. I think it adds to like a fun little vibe to set up the day. But I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just so you know, I am not actively looking at the chat, but I will stop periodically. I'm going to go ahead and start the question here. I'm just curious about how you use CuriPod. I mean, not CuriPod, how you use AI and ChatGPT. So I am going to start this question and invite everybody to share an answer.
the music play, so we can barely hear you.
The music's going to go away as soon as we finish the questions.
Okay.
All right. So, question here is how to use AI ChatGPT, reading assessments, writing feedback, detecting plagiarism, good for staff meetings, planning. Some of us aren't quite yet. A lot of, it looks like a lot of work around workflow. A lot of use is connected with that, which is really the way my district is also using it. If you're just joining us, Curie.live is the pin. Or Curie.live is where we're going to connect up. The pin is 882933. 882933. And we are going to get started today. I'm really excited to be here to talk to you about an interesting way that my district is leveraging what we see as the next steps for generative AI use to support our work as educators. And particularly what I'm going to be sharing with you today is a strategy to leverage learning, task analysis. And it comes really from John Hattie's work, which we'll be talking just a little bit about. So what I hope to do today is share with you a little bit about our story and what we're doing, and about Hattie's research that he's done, and particularly the one strategy that we're using right now in connection with AI. I'm going to share a couple of examples and share some tips from what we've learned from this experience, and then leave you with 4 steps so that you can also try this strategy out in your own classrooms, or if you're in a position of school leadership, you can share it with your staff. And I'd like to finish out the day with an opportunity for you to have a turn using ChatGPT like I'm suggesting. There is a QR code here. I'll share it again at the end. It is to a wakelet of resources, including a PDF of this presentation. So let me know if you have questions, raise your hand, because I do not have the chat open, but I will stop periodically and check it out. Okay. So I will share this QR code again at the end. It is to a wakelet of resources. So I thought I'd just tell you a little bit about our story, about who we are, what my role is in the district that I work in, and how we came to even use AI in the way that I'm going to be suggesting today. So I work in the second largest school district in the state of Georgia, Cobb County Schools. We have about 110,000 students with 112 schools. In the instructional technology department where I work, we have a director and 3 leads, and I'm one of the leads. And we also have 24 instructional technology coaches. So in my role as a lead, I both supervise the other instructional coaches, and I'm one myself out working with schools. We grouped our district because it's so large and we want to maximize the support that we're able to provide. We grouped them in 3, the schools in 3 geographic zones that really help us get out and support the schools and the students and the teachers. So that's just a little bit about us. We started, I guess, it's probably been 2 or 3 years of really trying to partner closely with schools and support whatever their strategic vision is. We started partnering with them, meeting with them several times at the end of each school year and sometimes over the summer to hear about their needs and what work they were interested in doing in their schools to promote student learning. And this man's name, John Hattie, kept coming up. And we thought, okay, we need to try to support that in the instructional technology department. And a lot of the administrators in the schools were choosing several different of his strategies to implement and really kind of almost promoting some teacher action research in their schools where teachers would try out the strategies, evaluate the progress, look at how students were learning, and then they would go from there. And so if you're not familiar with John Hattie's work, um, what he what he did, and this is 2011, 2010, and he's done it periodically, he has revisits. He did a huge meta-analysis study of strategies that have high effect sizes in promoting learning and in producing learning. And so some of the things that have a really high effect size are the jigsaw approach, which has over 1%. Where students set learning goals. That's a 0.68% effect size. Planning, having teachers have plans and having students make plans for their learning. Problem solving experiences. Using that in the classroom also has a really high effect size. Anything that's over 50%, of course, it has a high effect size. But these are just some of the ones that he's used, and he has he's got some really great websites that you can go to and look at. And one is, and this is in the Wakelet, it's called a meta website, and you can discover these I call them high yield strategies. You can go find if you're looking for student learning strategies, differentiation, and you can see all the different types of studies that he's used to determine that differentiation really does have a huge impact. So you can use a bunch of these filters to find high effect size, collaboration, and organization. And he lists even the number of studies that he has. So it's a really cool database, really, is what it is, that lets you go out and look at all of these strategies. And I'm gonna put it in the chat real quick. That lets you look at all of the different types of strategies that he's done research with and what which ones give you the most bang for your buck, really, is what we're talking about there. And so that really is what we were trying to do in our conversations with teachers and school principals, is find out what their needs were and how can we partner and support from the instructional technology department to support what they were doing in the classrooms and what they were having teachers doing. And in our district, the administration has been very involved in trying to implement these strategies. So then it becomes, how can I elevate technology integration as an instructional technology coach and still promote these strategies and show teachers how the strategies the school wants them to implement, how they can be combined with technology integration to get an even bigger bang for your buck. And just to come back here one more time, we do quite a few things, including we implement a type of problem-based learning approach called challenge-based learning. We show teachers how to use the jigsaw approach with content in their technology projects. We support student planners where students set learning goals when they're doing technology projects, and there's a place on the goals for them to plan out. So we've tried to integrate a lot of these strategies in the work that we're already doing. And so that part has kind of been a natural way that our department has been working to support technology integration and elevate student learning already. But then, with the explosion really of ChatGPT and other generative AI type tools, we've really tried to wrap our head around, what can we still do to support this work of Hattie's, who's such a major part of what's happening in our classrooms here in Cobb? What can we do with that? And I'll be honest with you, we've spent probably the majority of, since things really exploded last December, January, we've spent a large part of second semester and the beginning of first semester this year in our district showing teachers how to use AI to improve their workflow. And our district is not really a proponent of having students sit at the computer and use ChatGPT. Obviously, there's terms of service issues and other things like that, but we're not advocating for that. But once we've shared all the different ways that you can use ChatGPT to improve your workflow, then you start getting almost to the point where you're really into the lesson ideas. You're really into improving the assessments that you're using with students, and you're trying to craft better learning experiences, and you're starting to tackle the AI resources from that standpoint. So really just kind of our natural train of thought based on all the work that we were already doing with trying to implement Hattie's influencers with our technology integration support. We thought, okay, what can we do? Well, one of Hattie's largest effect size strategies is task analysis. So we started thinking this might be an absolute perfect way for us to continue to support the initiatives that are happening in our schools in Cobb County and marry it with the marvelous execution abilities of ChatGPT to support and elevate student learning and to take some of the lift off of teacher or the load off of the teachers and lift them up a bit. So if you get out there and actually, if you just do any Google search or whatever, Hattie's high yield strategies or influencers, he'll open up to this main article that I've referenced here, and you'll see this chart. And so cognitive task analysis as a strategy has an incredible effect size. And that just means it has a huge impact on student learning. So knowing that, we started to dig in first as teachers, because all of the staff, all 27 of us, 28, including our director, and the instructional technology department here, we're all certified teachers. I taught and was a media specialist for about 26 years before I actually joined this department. So we're educators first. So we wanted to make sure that instructionally, we really were able to wrap our head around what are the features of a really good task analysis implementation. Like that, let us figure that out first. So some of the things we discovered is it's about breaking down or chunking a piece of learning, whether it's how to write or whether it's looking at the steps of a math problem or whether it's reading a piece of history or science and figuring out what's right or wrong about it. It's about breaking down pieces of whatever the learning is into small chunks. So that's one key piece. The other is that it's really a strategy that focuses a hard look on content. That's probably why the yield effect size is so high, because it gets kids to focus and look at the small piece in the content. Ideally, we went into this thinking that kids must have a rubric to compare with. But now we've kind of grown to a place where you could set a learning situation up where kids create the rubric if they see what an is and is not activity is related to the task analysis. And you'll see what I mean about that in a minute. You need to, and in a really good task analysis as part of our research, students need to explain what's missing, what's right or wrong, or the quality of whatever they see, which is helpful if they can compare it to a rubric. And then they need to be able to offer corrections or solutions. 4 and 5 are critical about them really processing information and learning. So as educators, we've really wrapped our head around this, okay? So then this takes us to the AI integration piece of it. And I'm going to share a couple of examples with you. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to share 5 tips we've learned. And then we're going to look at 4 steps that can get you started. I want everybody to have a chance to kind of do what we've done before we wrap up the day. So this really is a classic. Teaching kids how to improve the description in their writing. And one way to do it, I mean, there are many, but one way to do this is to increase adverbs and the use of prepositional phrases. That can really elevate students' writing. So this is an example. This is a non-example. So this is writing, and I think the prompt I put in said 4th grade level or 3rd grade level when I put it in ChatGPT. And you can see that it really doesn't have that much detail. So presenting this type of situation to the kids and with teachers, this has been part of the steps. And what we show is we show how to input this information where you give a prompt, 3rd grade level, 4-paragraph essay about the beach that has detail using. So this is the high-end one. And then I regenerated and I said, okay, same topic, but hardly any adverbs or prepositional phrase, so details lacking. And that's what they came up with. So that's the one. We have this here. We've got an example and we've got a non-example. Even in the example, there's a title. So probably already you're like us. We were like, oh my God, we can show teachers how to use ChatGPT in this capacity. Students don't touch the computer, but they are then given kind of the role of being the teacher to determine, based on the rubric about detail that they use in the 4th grade, is this one a good example? And of course, kids would say no. And you can always start with a better example first if you want to do that. And kids can have the rubric. A lot of times when we've shown teachers how to use this, kids have had the rubric.
With cyber attacks on the rise.
But you don't have to, because at one point we discovered that if we let them have the experience of an example that's high end, an example that's low end, and let them compare, even with a Venn diagram, and let them compare, we can lead them then through a process where they create the rubric themselves. And so that kind of is where we've been landing lately. but it is still really effective if they have it first. And so that's just one example. Another way to use this, we've used this in social studies classes. Benjamin Franklin, his Life and Times is one of our standards. And having asked the ChatGPT of an example with, I think my prompt was compose 4 to 5 sentence paragraph about the contributions, put it on a 3rd grade reading level, which they did. And then this time I said, put in 2 untrue facts, which they did. And then I'm still in the same conversation train. That's why it kind of keeps it up with me. In which to ChatGPT is so polite. Sorry for the confusion. Notice that I'm going back and forth between my different chats on the side, and that's how you can keep up with it. And whenever you're ready for a new chat, you can go there. And of course, I'm using OpenAI, but there's lots of choices. There's Copilot. I mean, there are just really a lot of choices, but they basically, all of these different types of generative AI tools almost work the same. So in this scenario, the kids had already studied Ben Franklin. There was not a rubric, there was a challenge. And I believe they started out with the wrong one first. What are 2 facts here that are untrue? And they worked in partners. And it was just a great learning activity. They get a paper copy. We also discovered that that was really critical. Kids need a paper copy that they can mark up. They need lots of examples about how this process goes to begin with. For example, when they were first learning this strategy, teachers will take sentences and they'll read 1 sentence at a time if it's written in a sentence format or a paragraph format. And they'll go through really a process of agree or disagree, or what's true or false about this, or what's good, or, how could this be improved? Teachers have created graphic organizers to support this implementation, which has been, really exciting to see. And one of the things that we really like about this in our district is that we're not supporting student use of generative AI tools yet, like the ChatGPT service, although we know it's in everything we do. Spotify, Netflix, even predicting what food you need if you order on the Publix app. That's a grocery store here. But for kids, our big worry, and I saw it in a graph on one of the slides that was in the main room here before we started today, teachers' worries are about cheating. And that probably will continue to be a worry. But some of the issue is it's sort of like a hot potato. We worry about cheating, but this isn't going away. So how do we teach kids how to be critical thinkers and critical analyzers of this new tool that I've heard explained before, that it's like slide ruler to calculators? It's kind of just the whole, it's changing how we work. I don't know where I saw this, but it was last week, I think I saw a clip on TikTok, and somebody was saying that in all fields, you're going to be able to tell a huge difference in who leverages AI to do a better job at a better task, a better job at their work, versus who does not use AI. And I think that it's going to affect education like that as well. And not just with workflow, which to me is the obvious, but how can we use it to elevate student learning? And at the same time, how do we improve student skills to be able to use it? And of course, you need to be a critical thinker, because ChatGPT and others like it pull from, I don't even know, at one time it was September 2019 was the most recent amount of information it pulled from online to generate your answer. I don't know if that's still right. The date may have moved up on that. but it's pulling from what's online. So, kids obviously know that you can't believe everything you read, but they need to remember just because they put a question in, it doesn't generate factual information, and it still might not be the best. So building in those critical thinking skills, that really is the heart of what task analysis is all about. And doing it in combination with this ChatGPT generation, even though the teacher's putting the prompt in and the teacher's generating the work, we really feel like it's a step forward in the direction of teaching kids how to use this. So here's another one, Pythagorean theorem. This is not Pythagorean, this is slope-intercept. And the question here was, I believe I said, slope-intercept, do some incorrect steps. So they did some incorrect steps. And then here, of course, task analysis with math, as students would have to go through here and figure out what was wrong and why. And graphic organizers have greatly improved how this is implemented in the classroom, but we just have found it to be a great way to integrate critical thinking across the board and to really promote the work that teachers are already doing. Some of the things that we have learned from this process is that you really have to have a key purpose. Like slope-intercept, I really want kids to understand the flow of the algorithm that we're promoting. Or if we're having open-ended algorithms, I want them to know that. Or I want kids to be able to see how prepositional phrases can actually improve the detail of writing, not just what the words are. The next thing is you really have to play with your prompt engineering. There are a lot of acronyms out there. I think the one that we've seen be able to get a lot of help from is just kind of the idea of prompt. Make sure you tell it your purpose, mention the reading level. If there are things that you want it to admit, tell it what you want to leave out. Don't feel like you can't tell it to leave out specific things. You can. Make the amount clear. Like I'm very clear about 4 paragraphs or 3 sentences. What are you looking for? And back up to the purpose for just a minute. If it's an email or if it's a short story, make sure you say, or the wording in a flyer, make sure you tell that that's part of the purpose. The place or the setting, that's the other P here. Give as big a description of the background, the parameters of what you're trying to get as possible. And then the last thing is, don't forget that you can tell it again. So the cool thing about ChatGPT is that anytime you start it, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to say, generate a 4-sentence paragraph. Let's say narrative paragraph about a day at the zoo, written on a 2nd grade level. Be sure to include adverbs and adjectives. Okay, if you don't like it, you can tell it again. So you can regenerate. Okay, but what are 2 other options? So you get choices. So don't feel like you can't use that regeneration choice. So that definitely, is another key piece about how we've been using the prompt. Another tip, I'd said this to you in the beginning. We start out thinking that kids must have the rubric first so they know what they're looking at. And that might be the truth for some initial experiences. But we also discovered it can be this activity can be used where kids create the rubric based on different types of examples of things that they see. And then tip 4, we've found success. This is true with anything, model, model, model. Just use as many breakdowns, use as many examples of the process. And we encourage teachers, and this gets into step 5, print out things, let kids mark it up. You can show kids how you're using ChatGPT to generate this. Then print it out, have a graphic organizer for the steps that you want to use for the task analysis, depending on your content and your purpose. That really gets kind of at the multimodal pieces. And then, decide what you want kids to do with the information. How are they going to share what was wrong or what they would change and what their suggestions would be? So if you remember, going back here to the key descriptors of a solid task analysis include explain what's missing and offer corrections. So we discovered along the way that piece is really critical, or the kids just don't get the full implementation experience of using a task analysis. So some of the classes that have really found success with this show kids how to mark up the example, how to write or share a new one, or what to do to fix it. And then they take a picture of that on an iPad and upload it into Flip as their background and explain what they noticed and how it can be improved, whether it was just flat out wrong or it just needed improvements, again, depending on the content. So that multimodal output for students, and of course, as instructional technology coaches, we're thrilled about times students can get their hands on technology and use it to create and share their own voice and project. So that has been a nice way to implement and integrate even more technology for students, just having different voice and choice. So that has been really critical. Okay, before I launch into just the 5 quick and dirty steps, I'm going to stop here. I will share that Curie Pod with you again in just a minute. We're going to have a follow-up activity where everybody gets to share. So Tom says, I asked Gemini to give me a couple of paragraphs or 2 on the moon landing, asked it to add some details that weren't true. It warned me. I warned you about the reasons to distinguish fact and fiction as a caution, and then added a couple things in italics. Yes. So I noticed that I actually also had trouble with that when I'm trying to get the different non-examples. So sometimes you can go back and tell ChatGPT, hey, I want to be able to find the examples myself later, or I want to be able to go back and improve it later. So that's why if you can give it its full purpose of what you really want to do with it, that can help with that scenario. But you can also cut and paste, and then deal with the italics. But it's nice that it tells you that sometimes. Of course, we've been playing a lot with different things, all kinds of things with AIs. I'm sure everybody has. And one of my colleagues was just curious and prompted it for something, and it wrote a paper, and some of it didn't sound right to her, and she went to try to research, could not find the references it included, and some of the information was just flat out incorrect. She was able to prove that it wasn't. So, and that wasn't coming from a place of task analysis. That was just coming from a user place. But you see, you have to analyze what it's doing to see if it's right. So really what I just described, what she did was a full-on task analysis. I mean, that is what she did. So there's so many win-win reasons about why task analysis as Hattie's high yield strategy just seems like a perfect marry for how we can elevate learning in the classroom, and at the same time show kids what they're going to have to do to be able to use it. But we really did, we liked this multimodal idea at the end as a follow-up or as part of a close experience for the students, that they share in the background or share their screen what they changed, why they improved it, what was wrong with the original one, and got to use their own personal voice to share that. So that was kind of a nice way really to round that out. So after a lot of experimenting with this, we kind of have landed on 4 steps that we try to sell when we're coaching teachers, and offering this as a strategy of, hey, did you ever think about implementing this strategy to really help your kids learn hard content? And of course, the first one is pick your standard and know your purpose. And I a lot of times turn teachers towards this strategy if they have a tricky concept or a tricky set of steps that kids are supposed to execute. Something that's tricky. A close task analysis is probably always good, but combining it in this way, can really be a winner. So that really is the first step. Number 2 is engineer the prompt. Really make sure you set as big of parameters as possible. Tell it what to leave out, tell it what to add, tell them your purpose, and use that regeneration tool. So just stay in that one chat train until you're really gotten everything you want to get from that. So that's good. If you're not going to create a rubric and have that going in, then at least know the parameters of what an is versus an is not type of scenario would be, because that'll help you direct students if you want them to create their own rubric based on the experience. And then finally, pick an output for them to share their voice, to share what they've learned, and to really be analytical, encourage that. And so that output in the beginning for us really was just the graphic organizers that the teachers might have used and created. But the more we got into this, the more we realized it really is a perfect situation for kids to lean into Flip and other tools that let them, use their voice and share what they've learned. And that has been, we've really enjoyed seeing that piece kind of grow with us. So we're certainly not at the end of this journey. We feel like we're just beginning, but we're excited to kind of have moved from the point where we're just showing teachers how to use ChatGPT type tools for workflow and productivity to now let's try to lean into them to elevate learning. So that really is, we almost feel like now, we were talking about this earlier this week in my department, that maybe we have 2 channels that we really try to drive professional development training. And one is continued workflow, because there's lots of new tools. Every time you come out, turn around, there's a new tool that teachers can use to improve their workflow. But then the second train we really want to lean into is elevating learning for students. Will that end up with us actually promoting student use in the classroom? I'm not sure, probably, but we're not there yet. So right now, the way we're showing teachers how to use this is they're the ones that are using the ChatGPT to generate this, but then, the actual process is on the back end. So I just thought it would be great to put this out there. I'm excited to hear what other people might be doing along a similar vein, or other ways that you're really trying to elevate student learning. And one of the things I thought you would enjoy is having a chance to have a go at this yourself. If you don't have an OpenAI account, or maybe you have another service that you prefer to use, like Copilot, um, if you want to make your way over there and think about a standard where you could have an example and a non-example that could be used for a class purpose, I'd really like to give everybody about 5 minutes to go and do that. And then, come back here and suggest how this could be used as a learning elevator. I really like that idea of elevating learning with AI, what we can do as teachers to use that. So I'm going to end up here in about 5 minutes and give you a chance to do that. But I'm going to come back over here to these steps, just to kind of guide you, just as a reminder. And then if you want to open up your favorite AI tool and start a new conversation and play around with getting some examples. And I'm going to set my timer. I see it's 12:12. So we're going to do this for about 5 minutes. And then we're going to make our way back. I'll make my way back over to the Curie Pod, and I'll share that link again in case there's some of us that didn't get that. And we will go from there and see what everybody's got with it before we wrap up. Okay, so my timer's set, 5 minutes, 12:17. All right. We still got about 3 more minutes. You're having your turn. I'm demonstrating on my screen. All right. We're down to about 1 more minute of our little your turn time. I'm going to ask you in just a second just to share how you feel like we could use this, or you could use this experience with using task analysis um, to elevate learning in your situation. And if you're just joining, or you'd missed that earlier, we're going to be at Curie Live. That's my timer. We got our 5 minutes over with. Curie.live, and the pin is 882-933. So everybody's just had a chance to try out generating some examples and non-examples that could be used in a task analysis activity with the standard that they might know they need to teach, or know that teachers do teach. All right, so I'm going to set the timer on. You will hear the music again, and it'll stop as soon as I stop the activity. So share your ideas. All right, about 10 more seconds. So wrap up what you're sharing and go ahead and just click submit. All right, let's see what some ideas are that we have out there. Uh-oh, we're spinning. Well, okay, so you know what you do when this happens in a classroom. Why don't you unmute and let me hear some folks share, because this is freezing and I don't know why. Oh, there we go. Yay! Give everybody a second just to look. Oh, that's a really good one. Long division problem, and then added intentional error. Perfect. Okay. All right. So I'm really excited that you guys could join us today. Do you have any questions or other comments? Want to make sure that you get the Wakelet. It has the slideshow in it in case you want that. So I'll give you a minute to see that. This is the same one I posted in the beginning. Feel free to unmute your mic if you have a specific comment or question. We still have a few more minutes. I love this. The whole idea of being fearless when you're trying new things like this, especially with generative AI tools and how we can use them. This is kind of my motto, just being instructional technology coach anyway. I always tell folks, you don't have to know 100% of how it all works. You just need to know a tiny bit to get started. And there you go. Would you please share some feedback? And I am going to copy this link. Or not. I don't think it's going to let me copy it. Oh, yeah, well. And I'll put it in the chat. Derek, do you have the link for that? You could stick in the chat, or you guys can use the QR code. Yeah, you do need time to play with it. All right. Well, that brings us to the end. I'd love to connect with you. Whoops. I'm on the X, Emmy Nelson at 511. And Mary Nelson, I'm in LinkedIn as well. So please reach out. I'd love to keep up with you and find out what you and your district are doing.